the Overman Warrior Podcast.
How I gotta be holding my hair back in order to see when the wind's
That's
blowing.
probably how it should be. It's pretty windy.
Yeah, it is pretty windy.
Windy day. Not really the best of easy. Good weather. It's not good.
It's good weather. It's just pretty breezy.
My hands are touching. Oh. Dude, don't go that way. It's going that way. Come behind here.
All right, no, we're good. Well, yeah.
Okay, come on. Oh, jeez. Everything's stable. Okay. Okay. Three, two, one. Whoa. What just happened?
All right, Rich Hoffman here. So I was at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. a few weeks ago. And as I was leaving, I had already bought a lot of gifts. I had a whole stack of books in the parking garage that I had to walk back to. It was a block or two away. And my wife and I were trying to carry all the books I had bought, which is typical for me. I buy, when I travel, the thing I buy the most are books. I had a lofty stack of books, and we had to take them back to the garage from the Smithsonian. So we had to walk about 2 blocks up from the Smithsonian, and they were heavy, and we really didn't want to buy one more book. But I was walking from the cashier desk at the Smithsonian gift shop and walking towards out, which takes you out around where the little Easter Island, if you've been to the Smithsonian, you know where I'm talking about. There's like a big geode across the hall from the big Easter Island exhibit, and then you walk down out the steps and go outside, and the Department of Justice is literally right there. So I had a stack of books, and they were very heavy. I was carrying a big stack. My wife was carrying a big stack. And I walked by a rack right next to where you pay for your stuff at that museum. And this book was there. Now, you can get this book on Amazon, and I have since bought a couple of different copies of it. But it's a DK, any DK published book, I'm a sucker for. I don't care what it is. They go in they're really good in how they publish a book and the vast amount of information they put in every page. They really put a lot of love in all their books. So here's one about the moon. And everybody that knows me, that talks to me, that goes to lunch with me, knows how I feel about space exploration and the moon specifically. So here I'm walking out at the Smithsonian. And this is a book kind of designed for their gift shop. There's probably no topic right now in science more important than the moon. And of course, I associate with people who still think that the moon landings were fake. And I understand a government that lies to us the way they have, why people would believe that. I don't believe that. I think with a very powerful telescope, we know where the Apollo landings were. You can see them. You can photograph them. We've had plenty of other countries have driven their satellites over those spots and photographed the moon landing places. And they have no reason to perpetuate a conspiracy. All these were done on a Hollywood back lot just outside Las Vegas in the desert somewhere. Now the wreckage is still there. I happen to know people in the industry. I know people at Firefly, as a matter of fact. And I was very happy when they landed their lunar module on the moon. The Japanese, I know a lot of people in Japan, and they had landed a lunar module and it hit the ground and rolled over. Firefly managed to land there straight up. It's there was no people on it. It was flown automatically, and they managed to do it. And I was texting some of my friends there as it was happening, so I know it's not fake. It actually happened, and they landed very near the Apollo sites. So I'm walking out of the Smithsonian. This is a few weeks ago. My wife and I were like, do we need one more book? And she's like, do you need one more book, honey? It's like, yes, I need another book. I always need another book. And this book, DK, published book for the Smithsonian. I'm like, hey, we're at the Smithsonian. What better book? I will for the next 50 years, 60 years, 100 years, whatever it is, maybe longer than that. I will always look at this book on my shelf and say, I remember the day we were at the Smithsonian and we bought that book on the moon, and it was so important. People who know me know I talk about this all the time. And they're always asking me. And I have no ambivalence towards the gold rush that opened up the gates to westward expansion. I've read all of Theodore Roosevelt's books, Winning the West series, and all his books. I love Theodore Roosevelt. I love Theodore Roosevelt as great American president. There is a really good documentary about Teddy Roosevelt on Netflix right now in Washington and Lincoln, and some great ones. But there's one on Teddy Roosevelt. I read years ago the series on Teddy Roosevelt from Edmund Morris. I consider to be some of the greatest books ever written about a president, and that documentary series on Netflix talks about the 3-book series by Edmund Morris. It condenses it into really one episode of a docu-series. It's really well done, and I talk about Teddy Roosevelt because Teddy Roosevelt was all about westward expansion, and he loved to explain it. He loved the West. He's the responsible for creating all the national parks, and he made no apologies for westward expansion and the wealth that was generated from the gold rush. All the liberal losers out there who have socialist Marxist tendencies say we exploited it at the expense of the indigenous people. We took their gold. Well, they weren't doing anything with it. And we came out, we built an entire country of morality on it. And the gold funded a great country in America. There's no reason to run away from that fact. And I would say Teddy Roosevelt was the inventor of the Progressive Party, so progressives should love him. I think he's one of the greatest presidents ever. And the documentary that is on Netflix right now is worth watching because Teddy Roosevelt knew how to be a president. He knew how to represent our country, and he knew how to explain the need for Western expansion in a way that was very productive. But what I talk about with the moon, I say, where's the next expansion opportunity? And space is a general statement. You know, everybody's seen Star Trek and Star Wars, and they got an idea. Oh, fly in a spaceship and go somewhere, and there's other life forms are going to try and stop you, and that creates battles and tension and makes for dramatic tension. We're talking about space exploration, whether it's from a fictional narrative or a very real exploratory measure. And this book, as I bought it, I knew it was going to cover the topics I'm interested in, and it discusses in detail what is the importance of manufacturing on the moon, the future of industry as the moon sees it. There's a lot of thorium on the moon, and everybody knows I've talked about thorium. If every house had a thorium reactor, that's about the size of your current air conditioner, nuclear fission. If everybody had a thorium reactor on their home, thorium is very rare on Earth, but it's very abundant on the moon. If everybody had their own thorium reactor, you could power your house without being on the power grid for 70 years. Why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you use perpetual energy like that? And thorium will power starships all over the universe, the galaxy, our solar system. One of your best ways to become a Type 1 civilization, which we want to become a Type 1 civilization, we're not even close to that right now, would be to utilize like thorium on the moon. Lots of thorium on the moon. But we talk here about the new gold rush. And the rare metals, and thorium is, whenever you see a high concentrations of thorium anywhere, that means you're going to have rare metals close by it. So the reason why you want to go to the moon is you want the gold rush that comes with it. It may not be gold, that is the thing, but it's rare minerals, precious metals, thorium, elements of a new future state economy that are going to be very beneficial and really give us a lot of juice. And for perpetuating great economic expansion and becoming a Type 1 civilization. To use those who tend to be very scientific with the Smithsonian types. This is what I find always interesting. The Smithsonian types love the theories of the past, and they don't often embrace the technologies of the future, except when it comes to things like the moon. And they had this book laying out. They know what's in this book. This is all about the history of the moon, what we knew about the moon, and what's the future of the moon. And the future of the moon is the future gold rush. So when I go to lunch with people and they're like, "What should we be investing in, Rich? What's going on? Why is space so important? Why go there at all?" I say, well, I'm always about the new gold rush. And now this book. I have this book. It has great evidence. Yeah, you can look all this up online, but the DK people bring it all in one place so you can get easy access to it. The new gold rush, the future Teddy Roosevelts of our society, who will explain why America had to go to the moon and get a lot of precious metals, put them into a manufacturing environment. I talk a lot about 200 square foot facilities, because 200,000 square foot facilities on Earth are large. That's what we consider to be a medium size manufacturing facility. Have those like satellites floating around the Earth, where you can manufacture a lot of good stuff with all those rare precious metals, ran by thorium reactors, not just solar arrays collecting light from the sun. I think it's all great. I love the technology of Tesla. I'm a big fan of Tesla. I love what Elon Musk has done to create a solar power grid. But I also have talked a lot about First Energy in Ohio. And the big problem there was that politicians, Democrats, tried to destroy our power grid, our good energy, nuclear energy, coal, oil, natural gas, all that good stuff. And trade it for renewables, solar and wind. I'm not against going. I think it's brilliant. I love it. In Findlay, Ohio, just north of just up by Lima, there is a Cracker Barrel that I like to stop at when I'm traveling that way, north of the state of Ohio and in Michigan and northern Indiana, Chicago. Canada, New York. When you're going up there, you're trying to catch the turnpike to get going somewhere important. Just north of Lima, there's a wonderful Cracker Barrel, and there's a Tesla charging station there. And I'm not against the energy for those charging stations being generated completely with zero emissions if we can do it. And if they can have a battery that stores all that great power from the sun, and the sun can give us that much power on demand, and that's how we're going to get colonies on the moon and charge up your Tesla vehicles to go drive across the surface of the moon. Cool, great. And I've seen a lot of people at that Cracker Barrel pull their Teslas up. The Tesla charging station is just a little bit to the northwest of the parking lot of the back of that Cracker Barrel. The front of it faces the highway. The Tesla station is to the northwest corner of the back of the building. And it's just right next to the parking lot. You can go out of the the parking lot of Crackle Barrel into the parking lot of the Tesla charging station. And there's several of those around the country, and if you can get to them, you can keep your Tesla vehicles charged. And I think it's awesome. I think it's a great idea. It's a great alternative energy grid. I don't think it goes against all the investment that oil companies have made into gas stations. I love gas stations. I love Wawa. I went to Wawa just yesterday to get my grandkids an icy. It's great to go to Wawa, get gas, get ices, get some food, get some snacks. I love Buc-ee's. Buc-ee's is great. Those are all great traditional infrastructure fuel centers for your car so you can travel and have economic expansion, all that good stuff. But I'm not saying all that. I'm not against those Tesla charging stations. There's one at Disney Springs, the top of the very first parking garage they have down there. On the top story, on the very top, there's a charging station. You can pull your Tesla up, charge it there, go shopping at the Disney Springs complex. You come down, you plug your Tesla in, you get down the steps, you come right into the main heart of the shopping complex at Disney Springs. And I think it's great. All that's great innovation. But when people ask me, what's the next thing? Because those are things that were like innovations in the 90s and early 2000s. That's science fiction. Now it's science fact. You see them, it's common. What's the next thing? What's going to be the thing in the 2030s, Rich? Right here. Right here. The next gold rush is the moon. That's why you want to be there. And if you want to be an environmentalist, there's no indigenous people on the moon to complain about. We're not going to be taking their land from them. No, the moon has all kinds of great stuff on it. We want to get there and we want to use it to enrich and expand our economy. And if you don't do it, China will. If they don't do it, some emerging country will, that gets there first and uses all those trillions of dollars in assets. I think they've said that between now and 2032, the economy on commercial space flight. Here's a great article. Here you go. That's what I was talking about. Commercial space flight. Look at it over here. Read that one. It's how much is going to be generated by 2032. Just a few years from now. This is 2026. An additional $16.3 billion will be added just to space tourism, the space tourism market between now and 2032. It's a lot of injected money and revenue. There's a lot of cool stuff that's going to happen really quick. So commercial space flight, that's just one aspect of the space economy. But the precious metals, the next gold rush, the kind of wealth that funded America to begin with, that a lot of liberals want to poo-poo. Teddy Roosevelt knew how to talk about it and explain it as their hero, the guy who invented the Progressive Party and kind of led the way to Woodrow Wilson, which, those of us that are conservatives think of that as being terrible. They think of Teddy Roosevelt as being terrible because he opened the door to it, but I think Teddy Roosevelt meant very well in what he was trying to do. He was trying to create a great country, and he stood by it. He was a cowboy at heart. The new gold rush. There's where all your thorium is. We know exactly where it's all at. We also know where all the Apollo landings were, so if people think the moon landings were fake. The wreckage is there. There's also a lot of archaeology on the moon that we're going to uncover that I think is vastly important to the discovery of our origins as a human species. We're going to discover a lot. So we want to go there. I'm a fan of it. And people say, where do I put my money, Rich? Moon economy. Anything that goes to the moon and brings things back from the moon, invest in it. You'll be wealthy beyond your wildest dreams. There'll be the kind of wealth that created the Roosevelt money, that created Vanderbilt money, that created Rockefeller money. Those kinds of dynasties are going to come as part of the moon economy. There'll be a chance to become much wealthier than Elon Musk in the next 5 years. So when I go to lunch and people hear me go on and on about moon missions, space economy, aerospace companies that are making the leap from traditional aerospace to moon landings. I get excited about all of them, and I talk about them voluminously, and people kind of now have a context as to why. I'm a huge fan of space exploration and exclusively moon bases. I can't wait. I want to go to the moon myself. I want to put factories on the moon. I want to put factories in Earth orbit between the moon and Earth. And I want a constant stream of spacecraft going constantly. Here's the whole thing on the Artemis era. Moon bases going to the moon. And that's why these books are so brilliant. And I didn't want to carry one more book to the parking garage in Washington, D.C. We were tired. We had just, my wife and I spent a lot of time at the Smithsonian. We were really tired. We wanted to get back and take a nap. Here you go. Look at this. Here's if you missed the press releases on the moon base, this is why you want Blue Origin get back on its feet quickly. Get that pad repaired. Get back into space. Get back your cadence, because we want to see Blue Origin. Blue Origin in Florida has a whole manufacturing facility dedicated to creating infrastructure for the moon, whether it's little modules or craft that lands there. You're going to have people build a lot of this kind of stuff right here. And you got to pack it onto the SpaceX. It doesn't hurt SpaceX. SpaceX has their hands full. The Starship is the key. A Starship launch a week, taking some of this infrastructure into space, is what's going to happen very soon. So when people ask me, what do I invest in? I say, anything that is part of that infrastructure. You'll be wealthy beyond wealthy. How do you know? I know. This is like the pre-days of the Wild West, when Roosevelt was going out to the Dakota Territory before they were states. And you could see when you could pluck gold out of the streams and say, whoa, here's something valuable. Yeah, there's a bunch of Indians running around, and they're worshiping all these pagan gods. And I can do something with this gold that they're not doing anything with, because we've actually developed an economy in world trade with Europe. Let's go get it and take it back and build a great nation out of it that gives a lot of people upward mobility. That's what that Western expansion created. And now building bases on the moon, getting thorium to power everything. Everybody can have a home. You don't have to have an electric. I'm just telling you. When I say there's a lot of infrastructure that people loot their money off of, have built their lives around, like energy grids. I'm not against power grids. They've made the investment. They keep our power lines going. Every time there's a storm, they rush out, they fix it. You have drops in power to get the power grid back up. But I'm telling you, I've talked about this for over a decade. I've written many thousands of words, hundreds of thousands of words on this topic. Thorium reactors is the future of energy. You could produce all the energy. You can put energy back into the grid from your house, as opposed to drawing from the grid and then charging you money for it. They can be sending you a check because you're producing plus power. Thorium reactors is the way to do that. And there's a lot of thorium on the moon. Enough that once you get where you can bring it back to Earth routinely and safely, quickly, every home in the world can have their own thorium reactor. And you can power your house with something the size of a little air conditioner unit like you have now. You can power everything at your house with a unit about that big for 70 years without even drawing anything from the grid. Everything. Just think what that does to the poor in Africa. They can have all of a sudden access to power everywhere. They'll have the internet because of SpaceX, because of Starlink. I'm a big fan of Starlink. I think Starlink's great, just like I love Tesla. I love the Tesla energy grid. I think electric cars, they can drive all over the country, stopping by those Tesla power stations. One of them I talked about the one at the nice Crackle Barrel north of my home that I like to stop by. I think it's brilliant. Again, there's one at the top of the parking garage, the first parking garage down at the Disney Springs shopping complex. Charge your car while you're out there shopping. So it's a really cool idea. Cool ideas are what we should be embracing more. I've talked about cures for cancer. Cures for cancer are like that close. I'd say actually closer. The only thing preventing them is people make a lot of money off the infrastructure of death. So you haven't seen it happen yet. It's like a lot of people making money off the current infrastructure of the power grids as they are now, where they have these massive monopolies that run them, the utility companies. But the abundance of thorium that's on the surface of the moon will make it so everybody can have their own gold nugget. You don't need that infrastructure. Yeah, are those infrastructure elements going to want to change the entire thing? They've invested in building all these power lines everywhere. And now you're going to have all these spaceships bringing back thorium from the moon, like gold nuggets during the gold rush coming back from railroads from some faraway place. But you know what the best part about it? There's no indigenous people to have a controversy. There's nobody on the moon right now. There's some archaeology of civilizations that probably were there at different times in the past that seeded the earth many hundreds of thousands of years ago that are part of our distant relatives. Likely. We'll find out when we get there. We'll do archaeology. The science will tell us. And I said when I was at the Smithsonian, oh, look, I can't wait. You know how much fun it's going to be to go to a moon base? Now you know why I got so excited. I had this armful of books. We're at the Smithsonian. I'm having a time of my life because I love museums. And I walk by this book. I'm like, honey, we can't come here and get all these books and not pick this one up. The moon is my topic. The moon is my place. I talk about the moon and the economy coming from the moon probably 50 times a week. And I talk about it with more enthusiasm than I'm saying even right here. I'm trying to keep it cool, trying to temper down my enthusiasm a little bit, not to get too excited. But we're on the precipice of a massive gold rush. I call it, maybe call it a thorium rush, a precious metals rush. We're going to have all the precious metals we could possibly hope for. I had this conversation just the other day, and I was showing some people the relevancy of the aquifers under Butler County, under Trenton specifically. And we were talking about land use. And my family, I come from a long line of farmers. They farmed hundreds of acres in this region, in the Butler County, Southern Ohio region. So I love to see people baling hay in the summertime. I love seeing a big bean crop, beans laid out for as far as I can see. I love to see corn. I love to see massive cornfields. I'm a big fan of it. And I love the big fields in Trenton. When I go to my favorite pool store, there's times where my wife and I like to go. There's an RV. There's the Couch's RV place. I go down and get stuff for my RV at the Couch's place. You have to drive by the Miller Brewery. I watched the Miller Brewery be built, and I heard all the controversies back then. Oh, it's going to mess up our farms. And I used to know the guy that had a farm right next to the Miller Brewery. They had his own landing pad, and he landed airplanes on his property. He flew in and out of his property, his farm. It ran right along the railroad down there. And he used to fly out, land his plane on that property. That's when I think of Butler County, that's what I think of. And I was walking people around this area, showing them where these data centers were going to go and why they needed to go, why they needed to happen, and the arguments for them. And of course, they said all the stuff they read about in the news. Well, how are we going to have? We don't have enough precious metals. We're dependent completely on China for precious metals to build this infrastructure of superconductors and to build chips, get in the chip market. There was a lot of discussion about the Intel facility coming in Ohio, and it didn't make economic sense for them. It dropped out. How do you get to be where we're making chips here instead of Taiwan? Where we're self-reliant on being a chip manufacturer again. Well, you need a lot of precious metals to do it. And who has access to all those precious metals? Of course, they said, well, we're still dependent on China. I said, not for long, because we're going to be going to the moon, and we're going to be bringing back a lot of precious metals from the moon. Oh, really? How do you know that? I'm just telling you, the moon is the key to precious metals. And so we'll have our own chip markets. We'll probably make them in space and bring them back here on starships that land at a spaceport. Probably build a spaceport like they have down in Boca Chica. Probably build one by all these plants in Trenton. Oh, I don't want to hear it. They'll be saying 20 years from now, we don't want to hear sonic booms because, we like to hear nature. We like to hear silence of the cornfields. Like they say now, we like to see cornfields. We like to see farmland. That's why we live here. We don't want to see Amazon distribution centers and data centers as far as the eye can see. We like nature. They'll say in a few years, because I've been proposing we need a Hyperloop facility in Monroe. I know exactly where it needs to go. Hyperloop, Google it. I've done several pieces on it. I say that the Monroe area, as is the Middletown for sure. J.D. Vance will probably be the president of the United States during this period. I think Middletown, Ohio is a prime place for a spaceport. And that's a place where when you see in Boca Chica, they're getting ready to prove it out. I think very soon, maybe even August, September, where a Starship, because of the last successful launch a few weeks ago, they actually landed where they wanted in the Indian Ocean, and they had control. They were able to rotate the Starship so that the pins lined up to the chopsticks so they could catch it. And that's how you're going to get payload back from these Intel factories that will be floating around the Earth. You'll bring precious metals. I just told this story. I'm just telling it again here for everybody to share with everybody. Get your checkbooks out and be ready to invest in this. You'll have a Starship. Because it's a low G environment. So you'll be able to take a lot of precious metals off the surface of the Earth, off the surface of the moon, put them into a Starship, fly off the surface, fly to an Intel factory, floating around the Earth, build your chips with robots, thousands of robots, probably Tesla bots. They'll be manufacturing almost the entire facility in a zero-G environment. And you'll build lots of chips there. You'll have a Starship come to the docking bay. It'll land in there. You'll load that sucker up, zero-G environment. The Starship will fly away out of that little port, like you see in Star Wars. It'll land probably in Middletown, Ohio, because Middletown will be a prime place to build a space port. And that will bring back economic renewal. I've said that the Hyperloop would do that for the area, and it still might. There's still opportunities to build a Hyperloop in Monroe, which is right by Middletown. Middletown is a depressed area. How do you bring economic vitality back to the region? Have a place where you need chips coming from that Intel plant floating around the Earth. It lands with a Starship. You unload. It's like a truck, a tractor trailer. Unload. You have 100,000 chips that were just made in a zero-G Earth orbit from precious metals mined straight off the surface of the moon. They can land at Middletown. You can have everybody building whatever you want to build those chips. Restore your economy. Use I-75 as your corridor, your artery to supply the rest of the country with those precious chips. You don't have to bring them all over there from the other side of the world. You can make them all right in Middletown, Ohio. And you're going to have a Governor Vivek Ramaswamy to make sure all that stuff happens. I know a lot of the politicians that already have bills ready to go to make all this occur. So when I sit down and they say to me, Rich, what's the future? What do I invest in? I have $10 million I want to invest. What should I put it into? I'm like, right here. This is what you do. This is how you do it. And that's why when I was at the Smithsonian, I saw this book. I'm like, hey, there is probably in that book 100,000 quotes for me to make my pitches. And when I was talking to these guys about why the data centers and why Trenton, and I was getting excited about the aquifer, and I was showing them the Miami River. The Great Miami River was flooded a little bit. And it was high and moving very swiftly. I said, all that fresh water that's in that river seeps into this underground aquifer. There's more water down there than you can find. There's more water than you'd find in just about any place on earth that's fresh. So yeah, we can support the infrastructure here. Going back to the spaceport, Middletown is right next to Trenton. And there's a huge opportunity for a spaceport. Elon Musk just talked about ideal locations for spaceports. And again, you're going to have people out there protesting. I don't want to hear sonic booms when these starships come back into the atmosphere. I don't want noise pollution. I don't want an economy. I want to have a broke down community full of derelicts and drug dealers. That's the only economy they have is illicit drugs and prostitution. Yeah, that's what you want. I don't want a vibrant economy. You're always going to have people who are going to protest, and you're going to have people who are going to protest about the next gold rush. But that's what I'll be saying. Hey, this is the gold rush that we need to be saying. This isn't hurting anybody. It's on the surface of the moon. All you got to do is scoop it up with your hands and put it in a starship and fly it back to Earth and use it. There's so many opportunities. There are more opportunities than anybody could shake a stick at. And they're all coming up. And this is why I put this on my pile. And it's a pretty heavy book. And I'll have to say, I had to stop a few times for a break on the way back to the car because we were tired. I probably had 70 pounds of books in my arms. And my wife was carrying about 30 pounds. And we had little bags and everything, and they were digging into our hands. They were heavy. And I had to stop a few times to take a break. We finally got to our parking garage. We got them home safely. When we were traveling back, I had to put them on an airplane. I put them in my RV. I put them all, the RV, my RV probably had an extra 1,000 pounds of books hauling in it to bring them back. And this was one of them. And this was brilliant. And I'm glad that my wife and I looked at each other and we were in front of that Easter Island statue. And we looked at each other and she's like, you really want that book, don't you? I was like, oh, it's about the moon. It's a DK book about the moon. And it's from the Smithsonian. Yes, I want it. Yes. Okay, let's go back and get it. Because we were so tired, we didn't want to put the books we were carrying down. Because there's lots of bookstores in the Smithsonian. There was one on the top floor that we bought most of our books at. We bought a bunch of stuff for the grandkids. Bought a bunch of books. And that top one, we thought we hit the treasure load. And then the one we found, I wanted to go through the one on the bottom floor. Just one last time before we left. And I didn't see anything all that new that I had to have. Until we did buy a few books. I found one about migrations that I just absolutely love. I found one about migrations of humans as we know them. I think it's mostly wrong. I think some of the migration patterns of groups that have traversed through diffusion across the Pacific and across Beringia, I think they're true from what we have recorded, but there's a lot that we haven't recorded, we haven't discovered yet, that isn't on these maps. But I like seeing what they think is all true so I can compare it to information as it comes in that's dynamic and might disrupt the paradigm of what the understanding is, assumed understandings. All that's great stuff. So I was at the bookstore, that downstairs one, at the Smithsonian, and I did buy a book on the migration patterns of humans over the last 200,000 years, and I thought it was great. It was another book. It was another DK book. I'll probably do a piece just on that. It turned out to be a brilliant book all on its own. It was worth just going to the Smithsonian to get, I would say. Then we bought it, and I put it in our bags. We turned around, and we're leaving. And then I had not, because I was so tired, I did not see the special exhibit because I had just been down to Kennedy Space Center to see the Artemis rocket before it launched, Artemis 2. And I just went down and just saw the Blue Origin factory. and the SpaceX factory that they're building. I'm a huge fan of all of it. You talk about geeking out. You should have seen me the day, if anybody's watching this thinking, look how excited he gets. You should have seen me at the Kennedy Space Center looking at the SpaceX facility and touring around the Blue Origin factory. Because then we went from there, literally went back to the condo and went to eat at Grills. And if you've been to Port Canaveral, right where all the cruise ships come in and out, there's a really nice seafood restaurant called Grills there. And I was blown up with excitement because we had just went to the museum in Brevard where I saw the Wendover people, and they had the bones of giants there. That I was able to say, I was in as much as, if there's ever a heaven, that was it for me. Looking at space, going to see the Artemis rocket up close, the Artemis 2, and then touring SpaceX's manufacturing facilities there at the Kennedy Space Center complex, right around the corner from the General Assembly building, which I'm so excited about all that stuff. And then the Blue Origin, Blue Origin factory, something that makes the GE aerospace facility in Evendale look small. What the Blue Origin factory is, right at the entry of the visitor center at the Kennedy Space Center. It's brilliant stuff. You think I'm excited about this? Seeing it in life happening. I was at Grills, and the waitress thought I was on some kind of drug or something because the people I was with, I was talking so loud, and I was so excited about it. The Giants at the Wendover Group, the Blue Origin factory, the SpaceX factory, Artemis. Artemis is taking us to the moon. I can't wait till that's like a routine thing again. So we're leaving, and I had just a few weeks prior to going to the Smithsonian, we were at the Kennedy Space Center. And I was if they had a book like this at the Kennedy Space Center, I probably would have, my head would have exploded with enthusiasm. So I'd calmed down a little bit by the time we went to the Smithsonian. Oh gosh, 6-7 weeks later, 8 weeks later, 2 months. 2 months later, we were at the Smithsonian in Washington. Leaving, excited about all the great treasures we found there. Excited about seeing all the stuff we saw at the Smithsonian. I just loved it. I love the architecture. I love the enthusiasm of learning. I love seeing people there. I love seeing buses outside dropping off kids to learn stuff. I'm so loved it so much. And then we're leaving. And then I'm like, oh, that's a book on the moon. And I saw the DK emblem here. I could see it walking by. I'm like, oh, no. I have to stop and look at that book. And then we're like, no, we're too tired. We kept walking. We get out in front of the Easter Island exhibit, the statue, and my wife looks at me because she's known me. We've been married almost 40 years. She's like, you're going to regret not going back and getting that book. I said, yeah. You want to go back and get that book, don't you? I said, yeah. It's a DK book. It's about the moon. Okay, let's go. We went back. We put our stuff down. And, of course, the cashier was looking at me like, you're back? You guys, what's with you guys? You guys are like older than my grandparents, and you act like children. I said, I have to have this book. So I got the book, pulled it off the shelf. I started reading it right there. We had our stacks of books, and I just sort of tuned out to everybody that was around me. And this book has been absolutely jaw-dropping. I got home, and I looked at it so much that my grandson, I have a grandson who I think is going to grow up in this. Because he's my grandson. I have several grandchildren. And everybody always thinks their grandchildren are the smartest in the world. I have a young grandson. I would not be surprised if he does not excel. He already has signs of it, but I think he's going to excel Thomas Edison in intellect. I think when I always complain and joke about we haven't made any Albert Einsteins lately, and I say our education system doesn't get us there. Well, my youngest grandson is home. All of them are homeschooled, actually. They're all extremely intelligent. But this one particular one is over the top in enthusiastic. He loves to read, has a high reading comprehension level. He's only 10. And, you know, he saw me in my chair, my reading chair. I have my reading light on, and I'm devouring the contents of this book. Just absolutely, just like over the top. I mean, when I travel, I bring whatever we do when we travel, I bring it back with me in books. If you think I'm excited about the moon, you should have seen me at the Dead Sea Scrolls exhibit at the Museum of the Bible that day. That was a whole thing on itself. I went there for my birthday. It was so important to me that was the only thing in the world. I could have gone anywhere and done anything for my birthday. And my wife's like, what do you want to do? I want to go see the Dead Sea Scroll exhibit. And they had a lot of books, the Dead Sea Scroll exhibit. And I have been devouring them since. So it's something grandkids all kind of know about me. I was in my reading chair, my reading light on, with my stacks of books all around my chair. Tons of them, probably 25 of them were from the Dead Sea Scrolls exhibit. Just Dead Sea Scrolls stuff that spawned from my visiting the actual Dead Sea Scrolls. I was really geeked out on that. And then I had this book on the moon, and I had it out looking at it. And he came up to me and he's like, Grandpa, that's a DK book. Like, yes, it is. I collect DK books. I have to have it. So I bought it on Amazon, and we had it there. I think I bought it. I speed rushed it. It was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm just talk about the miracle of our modern day. A book like this that I bought that's at the Smithsonian, and I think I bought it for $40 because it was, had all the markups on it. It was from the actual museum, so they had the top price on it. I paid $40. I think by the time I walked out the door, it was $51 with tax. And I was happy to pay it. Tickled to death to have this book in my hands. And I probably wouldn't have known about it if not for my visit to the Smithsonian. And they had a huge DK display on the way out of the museum that said, here, we know everybody cares about the Artemis right now. It's in the news. Here's a book on the moon for people who need to catch up on why the moon is so significant. Treasure trove. The next gold rush, the moon is. Brilliant stuff. So I wouldn't have known about it. Now I'm reading it, I'm looking at it, and my very intelligent grandson comes up and says, Grandpa, you know what you have there? And not only is he obsessed with space, when he was 3, he memorized all the bodies, the celestial bodies of the solar system, but he had bodies memorized in the Kuiper Belt, just outside the solar system, beyond Pluto. And he knew their dimensions, and he knew how many moons they had at 3 and 4 years old. And he is going to be an extraordinary mind, just to say it. He's a brilliant young man. In fact, I started this clip off by showing us launching what he got for his birthday, which is a model rocket, an Artemis model rocket. We went down and launched it a little bit with a couple of my grandsons. And he hadn't flown it yet, and it's a beautiful model. If all you ever did with that beautiful Artemis rocket was just look at it, put it on your shelf and look at it on your desk, you'd be fine. And when I was at NASA, I was trying to get him a good model rocket from NASA. They had a Saturn V rocket that I thought had brilliant detail on it. So I got him for his birthday. They were all sold out of the Artemis rockets. I did get him an Artemis rocket. It is absolutely beautifully detailed. I felt terrible launching it because I was afraid it would go up, it'd blow up. Because this is an actual model rocket launching it. So we went to our favorite launch site, launched it, and I showed it at the beginning of this video. That's why it was relevant. And this is a hobby of his. He wants to know and build these things and wants to fly these things. He wants to understand how they mechanically work. He's obsessed with stuff like this. And again, he knows celestial bodies. He watches all the launches as much as possible. And he's certainly going to be a person that's going to benefit from the gold rush. And I get excited for my grandchildren because they're going to have opportunities. I look back on the Wild West period and the people who the Vanderbilts out there, not because of the wealth they generated, but because of the opportunities they created through their wealth building. They made a much better world a lot of people benefited from. And you see a little bit of that when you go to the Smithsonian. You see that kind of turn of the century architecture when people had full bank accounts and they traveled the world going on safari and building and bringing back all this great information. A lot of what we learned happened because we had rich cultures that benefit from the gold rush, the first gold rush, California gold rush, the Dakotas gold rush, and we could afford to go out as human beings and had expendable time and income to explore the world and figure out what was going on. And we wrote all these great books about what we discovered. That's why I love it so much. And these kids are going to grow up at a time when that happens for them. This next gold rush from the moon is going to give them opportunities that are absolutely stunning for inquisitive minds. And when I see these young people, and I think how he's going to look back on the days when we launched this model rocket. Anyway, we flew his beautiful rocket, the Artemis rocket that he has, and we had an engine that was overpowered for it because we went down to Hobby Lobby and to get engines, and the engines they had were I think a C6, and that was too much thrust for the weight of this rocket. Now this rocket, the way they built the Artemis rocket, it has kind of a plastic cone. If it was a solid wood one, like a lot of them are, probably wouldn't have been a problem. But they took a lot of weight out of it, and it looks like they 3D printed some of the details for the rocket. So they're all light. So what happened was there was a wind shear about 30 feet above where we were launching the rocket. It was pretty breezy, and I was worried about the breeze. And that light rocket, it went up with a lot of thrust off the pad. It went up and hit this wind shear. The wind was coming pretty heavily, and it knocked the rocket. The nose cone is pretty light because it's plastic. And the rocket went into like a pretzel thing. It tilted its cadence, and it started doing these like pretzel rolls. It did not go 1,000 feet. It's designed to go 1,000 feet and then pop its parachute and come back to Earth. I was actually glad that it was aerodynamically compromised, because I was really worried on that windy day of losing that rocket. We've launched rockets before that were, the parachute worked too well, and they get into a current at 1,000 feet. That's where planes fly. That's where Cessnas fly, at about 1,000 feet. And once a model rocket gets up to that altitude, and you've got a 30 or 40 degree wind current flying across the surface of the Earth through a convection current up there, it catches it and just takes it. And it took one of those rockets and took it a mile north of our launch site into a neighborhood. And I didn't think we were ever going to find that rocket. So I was really worried about that happening with this Artemis rocket, because it's so beautiful and he loves it so much. And because we have these kinds of discussions with this kind of enthusiasm, and again, I think he's going to be a future Thomas Edison. I think he's going to be an inventor. He's going to invent things at a pace that astonishes people. And he's going to benefit from having this space economy in his toolbox of things to play with and utilize, whether it's expendable income or scientific options discovered through discovery. I'm excited that young people like him are going to get that opportunity. And so I get excited about it. I'm excited about it for my own reasons. But naturally, as a grandparent, my job is to cascade that enthusiasm to the next generation, which I think is happening for sure. So I bought him a book. I bought him his own version of this because he was going through mine. I was like, hey, you got like Cheetos on your fingers, and I don't want that on my book because it smells so wonderfully published. The way DK books smell is one of my favorite things in the world. I told my wife I'm going to buy her perfume of DK published books, and that's all I want. There's nothing better in the world to me than the smell of a DK published book. So I told him, I said, look, man, you're going through my book here and you're getting he was eating Cheetos. Cheez-Its. And he had the cheesy powder on his fingers, and they were getting on the corners. I'm like, no, you can't do that. He's like, you got to get me one, Grandpa. So I went on Amazon right then and there and ordered it, fast-tracked it, and it came from the Monroe facility. Just 4 or 5 miles down the road. They had it on the shelf, and their inventory system knew it right away. They put it on a truck, and I was able to pay, I think, an extra, it was $25 on Amazon. I paid $51 with tax at the Smithsonian. I paid the expedite fees, I think, which was like $20-some, $25 more to get it like that afternoon. And I had it on my front porch in 3 hours from the Monroe facility, very near my house. They had enough of an inventory. It was such a well published seller that they had them on the shelf at their distribution warehouses because their inventory system says, hey, chances of this book moving quickly and somebody like Rich Hoffman buying it in the next 90 days, because we know by tracking his phone that he was at NASA, and we know that he buys model rockets for his grandson, and he's likely to have a spontaneous moment at his house, so you better have that book on the shelf so you can collect that extra $25. So their artificial intelligence system, driven by all these big data centers, knew all that, because my cell phone collects my habits. It listens to me make all these pitches at these lunch times when people are like, hey, Rich, I have $10 million. Where do I invest it? What do you think I should do in aerospace? What do you recommend? The moon! The moon, the moon, the moon! The next gold rush. That's how you do it. Become the next Vanderbilt. I got about 2 billion projects to pitch to you. Okay. Where do I sign up? Tell me. Who do I call? Oh, I love this book. I love the book. I love the moon. And the moon is the next great gold rush. And if you want to be rich, get in on the action. Don't sit around complaining about the wealthy. Oh, the wealthy, the wealthy, the wealthy. You can be wealthy too. Just take your next paycheck and invest it into the infrastructure of the next gold rush. I can promise you, you can play this video back to me. I have a lot of videos that I wrote, I did 15, 20 years ago. You can play this book, you can play this video back at me 10 years from now, and if you're not rich, I'll apologize. But I can guarantee you, you're going to be rich if you invest your paycheck now into the space economy. 10 years from now, you're going to see that gold rush coming back at you, and you're going to have Vanderbilt wealth. Very high probability of it, unlike any other period of history. And I emphasize Middletown, Monroe so much because I think Middletown is a candidate because a lot of farmland around it, Franklin, Springboro, the land between Dayton, just outside Dayton. There are opportunities, lots of opportunities. Preble County, there's lots of opportunities for a spaceport that can feed off the I-71 corridor. And the spaceport, coming back straight from the moon, the gold rush, go look up Elon Musk's spaceport contemplation plans. And wherever there's a spaceport, there's going to be a thriving economy. And I would love to see Middletown, Dayton, Greenville, all these places benefit from spaceport economy. With the guy who came from Middletown, J.D. Vance, likely being the president, and Vivek Ramaswamy being the governor. It's going to happen while he's it's going to happen while he's governor. And a lot of the legislative people that I know are going to be in their prime years during that period. They have bills right now to make this happen, make this kind of infrastructure occur. So there's going to be a great opportunity for wealth building, and people are going to benefit greatly from it. So why do I get excited? Why do I get excited about this book? Because it's the next gold rush. And that's why I stopped in my tracks, went back and got it. And that's why. Well worth it. Well worth it. The next great gold rush, the next great wealth building opportunity on planet Earth is the moon. And there should be nobody apologizing for it. It's not exploiting anything. There's no indigenous people. There's probably some archaeology of our own past there that we'll explore. And it's going to be very fun and exciting. And it's going to produce a lot of great books I'm going to enjoy reading. Can't wait for all of them. Anyways, Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe, make tomorrow a better day. If you haven't read my book, The Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. Anyway, have a good day, and see you later.
In the age of disclosure, you must understand the politics of heaven. Coming soon.
Coming soon. The politics of heaven in 2027. A treasure hunt through heaven and all human history.